Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Menor and we are here to make some really cute Christmas polymer clay projects for you. And these are for beginners. So if this is your very first time working with polymer clay or your very first time making jewelry, I got you. We're going to learn everything we need from start to finish to make several pairs of earrings that you can give away as gifts or sell. And the techniques that you'll learn in this class will be applicable to a lot of different seasons and a lot of different types of jewelry. So first, let's make sure that we have all of our supplies here. So starting with some clay. So this is the clay that we're working with. We're going to be using solid clay like these here, and we're going to be using some pre-patterned clay. And this is something new in the world, available at Michael's. They've got tons of different really cute patterns. And you work with this. This is what it looks like when you see it in store. This is sold in the jewelry making department, not in like the basic crafts polymer clay department. So this is in the jewelry department. This is special for jewelry making. And so this is what it looks like in the package. And then you take that out and you have these little slabs of clay. And so first I'm going to show you a project using the pre-patterned clay. I'll show you how that works. And then we're going to do some projects using the solid clay. So we have our snowman here and these adorable candy canes. And there's little tricks to making it perfectly smooth and perfectly even. And we're going to work through all of that. So that is the clay that we're working with. Next, I have some various tools. I have cutters, I have rollers, I have tools like this. I have wooden sticks. These are all the cutters that we're using. These will cut our shapes for us. I have assorted findings, jump rings, earring parts. Here's some jump rings in lots of different sizes. And then I have some basic jewelry tools, and we'll talk about what's needed as we get closer to that. So for the clay part, polymer clay is oven baked clay. This has to go into the oven at 250 for 20 minutes for it to harden. It is not like an air dry clay. Air dry clay, you leave it out for about 24 hours in the air and it just dries. This does need to be baked in an oven. So in a toaster oven, a regular oven, 250 degrees, 20 minutes for kind of a standard jewelry, anything like this, 250, 20 minutes. However, if you have some thicker pieces, which let me show you the difference here. Here's one earring. You can see how thin that is. And then this is another earring. Because of this faux braided technique, it gets a lot thicker. So let me show you the edge of that too. So for a thicker, anything above about 5 mm, you do need to cook it a little longer. And if you do not cook clay long enough, or you do not cook it at the proper temperature, it will be brittle when you take it out. You don't want that. We don't want any brittle clay. And then finally, I have, this is a like a ceramic tile that I got at my local home improvement store. And I like to work on this tile, and I also like to bake on this tile. So it's my work surface, and then I can pick the whole thing up and put the whole tile in my oven. If you do not have a tile, you're just working on a solid surface, you're going to obviously need a baking sheet to bake these off. And we always suggest lining it with parchment paper. So I have that off to the side just as an example, and I'll show you how to use it if you're using that method. But I'm going to start with my ceramic tile here. So let's get started. This is the first earring we're going to work on. It is super cute. A little, like, we call them tassel caps. What did you guys call these things? I'm not sure if that's the right term for it. We call it a tassel cap, like a knit cap. And it looks like this is very intense knitting of clay going on here, but it's all fake. We faked this, and I'm going to show you how to fake it. So it starts with a pattern of clay. There are like 40 some patterns available, lots of different colors, lots of different color stories from pastel to brights. I'm just looking for my X-Acto knife. And so you want to get into this package. It is nicely all sealed up for you. So let me just open that up. And, oh, there it is. There's the edge. Let's peel that back. Okay, so here's our slab. I'm going to put that down on my ceramic here. And let's talk about a couple other specialty tools. This is a set of thickness guides, and you may have seen these if you bake a lot. Different thickness guides for getting like a pie crust, for example, all one consistent thickness. And so this has two thicknesses. One is 4.5 mm and one is 3 mm. It's white, so it's hard to see on camera. There it is. You can see. Oh, you can't see, but it does say 3 mm, and these are two different thicknesses if you look at the side of it. And so I'm going to take the 3 mm and lay that on either side of my clay. And then when I use my roller, that is going to help me get this slab down to the 3 mm thickness. So this is an acrylic roller. And this comes in, there's a great starter tool kit of everything you might need for polymer clay jewelry crafting. So it's got, I think 7 different tools in it. We're going to be using all of them, not all of them, most of them today in this class. So you'll see how they're used, but definitely having a roller is super important. And so I'm just rolling this up and down, not like putting my whole body weight on it or anything, because I'm trying to be gentle, a little bit gentle. The other thing you'll notice is that I did not condition this clay before I started rolling it out. So conditioning of clay is something really important when you're using solid colors of clay. And conditioning of clay, I'll just show you this little piece of white clay that I have over here. So conditioning of clay is when you mush it around. You use your hand to work that clay. You're working it, you're actually heating it up a little bit so that it is more pliable and easy to work with. So you definitely want to do that for solid, sort of your traditional polymer clay crafting. What I'm showing you here in this first project is new. It's pattern clay, so we can't exactly condition it in the way that you may be used to if you've done polymer clay before, because then we would use this beautiful pattern. I mean, we would lose the beautiful pattern, and we don't want that. So so you can still make beautiful jewelry with this pattern clay. You just work with it a little differently, and it's a little more easy because you don't have to condition the clay. All right, so I'm just going to feel here to see, yeah, we're about 3 mm. So I'm going to take these thickness guides away. And then I am going to pull out my cutters. So these are the cutters that we're going to be using. The cutters come in these multi-packs. Here's what they look like in stores. You can get like a bunch of different shapes. And for this hat, we need an arch and a topper. There we go. The other thing I didn't mention that I have off to the side is a little bowl with some cornstarch in it. Cornstarch really helps things to not stick to one another. So whenever I'm using cutters, I always dip them in the cornstarch first. All right, so let me scoop this up a little bit so I can see the pattern through my cutter. And that allows me to decide what the pattern is. So we've got kind of a stripy moment here. So if I want my hat to have those stripes going horizontally, I would have to turn my cutter this way. But I like them going vertically, so that's what I'm going to do. Pressing down and lifting back up. Okay, and then back into the cornstarch, just dipping that so I get cornstarch on the edge. And I'm going to make another cut here. All right, let's switch to this. Dip that in there. So I am cutting out shapes enough to make one pair of earrings. And you would, of course, cut the rest of this for whatever other earrings you're making. Now, before I peel this away, I'm also going to make 2 cuts. This is with a blade. Sorry, I should show you what I'm working with here. This blade is very sharp, metal blade, comes in the starter kit, and this is super useful for making cuts. So I'm just cutting off some pieces, and I'll show you why here in a minute. All right, I'm going to put these to the side for right now. And then this, I'll show you the beauty of working on a ceramic tile is you can just peel up the parts that you didn't use. And then I don't have to touch these at all. So if you have to transfer this to a baking sheet, then you have to move these, and you could get a fingernail in there. You could get some fingerprints in there, and we don't want that. So the simplest and easiest thing is to cut it on your baking surface and then just don't touch it. Just leave it there. So this is ready to go into the oven. Before I do that, I could perfect it by going in with some type of a sharp tool and just kind of going along the edges, making sure that I don't have any little bumpy bits and that, you know, this looks exactly the way I want it to look on all sides and so forth. The other thing I can do is I can add my attachment holes. So you can see in our example earring, this top shape needs a hole here for our jump ring, and the bottom shape needs a hole here. So I can make those tools when the clay is wet before I put it in the oven, which I will do here. But my preferred way of making those holes is actually after I bake it. I go in with a little, I'll show you how to do this. I go in with a little manual drill, and it takes 3-4 seconds, and you drill it out, and you just get a more consistent hole. This is fine for doing it, but if you want them to be perfectly consistent every time, I would actually do that after you bake it. So that's my suggestion. So this clay that we pulled off, we are going to reuse this. Don't worry about that. We're going to not let any of this go to waste. So, but for now, I'm just going to put it off to the side. Okay, so we have our shapes. And just so you know, if you do need to transfer this to a baking surface, use your blade parallel to your work surface, your table, and scooch it under, and that's how you pick something up and move it. Okay. And so I'm just going to sort of move mine a little bit so I have more working space here. And now we get to do the fun part, which is this faux braided technique. And so that is actually, let me scoot this over. That's actually what I pulled these off of for. Just a little strip. So I'm going to kind of, we need to make this into a snake. So I'm going to kind of get that started with my hands just a little bit. Let me fix my bracelet here. Okay. But there's a cooler way of doing this, and that is that same thickness guide that I showed you that we were rolling with. You can use this as a neat little tool to make your snakes perfect. So I can use this instead of using my fingers. It's doing the same thing, but without using my fingers, I'm not going to get my fingerprints in there. It's going to be more even because it has this rigid surface to work against. So this is how you would make snakes. I call them snakes. And you can kind of feel when you're doing this when it becomes that perfect round shape. And just take your time and work with it. All right, so then I'm going to get my blade again, cut in the middle, because I want to create 2 of these. And now, instead of braiding, we're actually just going to twist. Twist, 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 twist. And then we can lay that down. You know what? I'm going to move this one too. We're going to lay that down on top. And then we do it again. I'm actually going to cut this a little bit so it's the same size as my other snake. Just get it started. Oh, made it a little too thin. Let's get it started. There we go. You can kind of keep checking it, see how it's doing, but we're just coaxing that into a round snake. Okay, I'm going to cut that, put 2 pieces together and twist. And then when I put this down here, I just want to look at, oh, actually, maybe we do need to twist it in the opposite direction. Let's try that. When I put this down, to really get that faux braided effect, see how this twist is coming down this way? You need to create V's. So whatever I lay here, the twist needs to be coming this way. Like that. And that's what gives you that faux braided effect. So you continue making the snakes, laying them across here until you have your whole shape filled with the faux braids. Once you do that, you can go in and cut. You can cut all the way through both. All right. So now this has the braids on it. Imagine that this was filled all the way with the braids, then this would go into the oven. And I take my little leftovers and I'm going to put them in my leftover pile. Okay, so that is an example of how to work with the pre-patterned clay. To get this really pretty shiny glitter, you can add glitter in this step before you bake it. I can just kind of pat it on there. Some of that will flake off after you bake it, but it'll leave just some really pretty little twinkly bits. You can kind of see that there. And that's ready to go into the oven. All right, so moving on to the next project, and we're going to come back to this and I'll show you how to assemble this after it bakes. So moving on to our next project, which is these lovely candy canes. These are my favorite ones. These are so cute, and the colors are adorable. This kind of like a terracotta color. It just gives you that vintage Christmas look, and they're perfectly smooth. And I'll show you how to get it like that. So these projects use obviously solid color clay. So I have some solid color clay here. That clay is sold in stores like this in the jewelry making department. So it comes in these ombre 3-packs where you get a light, medium, and dark of the same tone. And so we are working with a terracotta color, a green color, and I've preconditioned these, but if they sit out too long, I need to condition them more. If they get kind of like cold, you'll need to condition them more. So there's my green, and here's my white. So a couple cautions about white. When you're working with multiple colors like this, the color will transfer. It'll transfer to your hands, and then that will transfer to the white clay. So if you've been working the green clay, for example, a little green, you can see even on my fingers, it will transfer. So wash your hands frequently when you're switching from dark colors to light colors, because the color will transfer slightly. It will also transfer to your tools, like to your roller, for example. This will get some color to it. You can just wash that down with some soap and water and it will be fine. But just know that that may happen. And I can see even now, as I'm telling you this, that I am slightly transferring some green color, but let's just pretend that that isn't there. All right, so I'm giving this a white clay some extra conditioning love, because you will find with white clay, you have to do that. Certain colors of clay you are like kind of like harder than others. And white is one of those colors that you just have to condition it a lot. So here we go. So I'm just going to take a piece of clay and we're going to start working that into a snake. I'm going to take my thickness guide tool and use that to work it. And I like to kind of alternate between my fingers and that tool, because with my fingers I can kind of feel more with my fingertips if there are any, I don't know, tall spots. All right, and we want this fairly thin, because in the next step we're going to be adding, I've gotten a little bit of whatever little bit of clay was stuck down here, just got stuck there. But let's work with this terracotta color. So same thing, get it started with your fingers. And then you can use these to perfect it. All right, so that is all there is to it. Now we are ready. I'm just going to cut this off. This is just kind of extra. And so I lay both colors next to each other and then just twist. And working with really well-conditioned clay helps this process go so much easier, because you won't get any sort of dryness, cracking, anything like that. All right, so now we have this twist. And this is the trick to making it perfectly seamless and smooth, is now you roll it again like that. So you can make these candy canes as thick as you want, as big as you want, depending on what you're using them for. For earrings, you could make very easy to translate these into Christmas ornaments. But that's basically it. Now we have smooth, gorgeous candy cane. I can even kind of twist this a little more if I feel like my stripes are getting a little wider. I can twist it more, go in with this. Also, if you wanted to vary the size of the stripes. So when I started this, I started with about the same size snake from white to terracotta. If you want more white or more red, just make a larger or smaller snake to start with. All right, and then I can put this in a candy cane shape. Do this directly on whatever you're going to bake it on. Candy cane shape, and use my cutter. I'm going to cut that so I have a nice clean edge, and then decide how long the candy cane is. Cut that. Move this up. And I'm trying to make them look very similar and cut them at the same length. All right. Those are ready for the oven. And when they come out of the oven, I'll show you how to do all of this business up at the top so you have a way of hanging it as an earring. All right, so there is our second project. It is ready to bake. All right, moving along. I am going to switch this. All right, moving along to Snowman. So I haven't mentioned it, but if you have any questions, go ahead and ask those in the chat. We have some folks on the line that are going to be helping to answer any questions that you might have. And we would love to hear from you. You're a quiet bunch. All right, so now I've just picked up my white clay again. I'm just kind of roughly conditioning it again with my hands. Now, my hands right now have green on them. They have pink on them, and they have glitter on them. So all of that is getting into my clay. But you will, of course, be more careful, I'm sure, in your crafting adventures. All right, so I have my clay here. I'm going to pull out my thickness guides again to go on either side. And I'm going to get my roller. Now, before I roll this, I think that I would like to put some cornstarch on the top, just like, you know, when you're baking. You want to use some flour so it doesn't stick. And let's roll it out. So you see how easy that goes from having a bunch of fingerprints and things in it to being a flat sheet of clay. All right. So for this earring, we need a smaller circle head and a larger bottom body piece. So I have those here. Here are those two cutters. And let's dunk them in the cornstarch. And cut down. And again, just weed out all of the excess here. And I'm going to set that aside. Now I need to create all of these cute little details of his face and body. And we're going to use some black clay for that. So here's the black clay. Let me get into it. And I only need a tiny little bit of this. So I'm just going to take a little corner and wrap that back up. Oops. All right, so for these details, we need 4 little dots like circles. Kind of an easy way to do this to get them all the same is to make another snake like this. I'm not going to use my fancy tool. I'm just going to use my hands for this one. And then I can just cut off a little piece like that big and roll that in my fingers. Set that aside. This helps you kind of portion out the clay so that one eye won't be extremely larger than the other eye. There you go. All right. This one seems a little large. Let me make one more. And these don't have to be perfect. Remember that his face is supposed to be made with pieces of coal. So your pieces don't have to be perfect. They can be a little rustic. I like to say rustic. And then we need the carrot nose. That carrot nose actually came from one of these patterned. You can certainly mix up, if you don't have orange clay, you can mix up your own orange from yellow and red, obviously, but I'm just going to steal a tiny little corner of this and use that for a carrot nose. All right. Just kind of working with it. There we go. All right, time to assemble. So I'm going to place that nose first. Actually, before I do, you can always, if you feel like it's a little large, and I do feel like this is a little large, you can always come in with your blade and cut. And kind of shave that down till you get it to the right proportion. And now I'm coming under it, scooching under it, and setting it down. Then I want to go in with a detail tool. This is a sharp, pokey, I think it's called an awl. And we want to place that. Now, if we want that to stay, we are going to have to put some pressure with our tool and try to get it to marry the clay that's underneath it. That it's, you know, it's very detailed, small work. And so you just have to kind of work with it. And I'm kind of making some carrot texture a little bit as I work. And if you can't get that sunk down in your clay, it's all right. We're going to still bake it this way. And then we may have to add these, add a tiny little drop of glue, and that will help stick them on. So here, let's try an eyeball. So I've just stuck that with my tool and I'm placing that where I want it to go and kind of pressing down into the clay below it. And then you're just working with it to get it into the right shape. And the tiny little mouth there. Let's see how small we can do this. So I've just taken one of my other balls, Roll that into a very fine little snake. And I'm going to cut just a little tiny piece of that. He's a sad snowman right now, but don't worry, we'll fix him up. Turn that frown upside down and don't get it stuck on your nose. There we go. And you can get really fancy with these eyeballs. You could add an even smaller little glob of white and then another to make like kind of the white of the eye and then the pupil. Or you could just keep it really simple. Let's go for simple. All right. Now, and then of course we can add these. Now, if you can get it into the clay, it'll, in the baking process, it will kind of stick together. If you can't, we may have to glue those after it comes out. Just going to take off the right there. All right, so let's just look at the construction of our example here. So we have our two pieces separated by a connector. So those look like these in the store. They have all sorts of different shapes of these connectors. Here's like the oval version. They're super fun to work into your polymer clay. It just makes it look fancier when you have clay and metal together in one jewelry piece. So we wanted to connect that to the top face, but didn't want to create a hole. See, this has a hole right there. Didn't want to create a hole in the middle of his chin in order to connect this. So we wanted the connection to go this way, up through his chin this way. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm going to show you two. Here's our example. You can see how that was done on the back. It's just cutting a little head pin. This is a head pin, one of the like basic building blocks of jewelry. Cutting that and gluing that onto the back and then using a jump ring to connect. So that's one way of doing it. If you want it to appear more finished though, I'm going to show you an alternative. Here is, oh, here we go. Here's a little doodad here. Tiny little screw. Sometimes you see these called screw eyes in jewelry world. And I'm gonna, instead of lifting this up, I'm gonna use some clay that I have. This is not baked yet. So what you can do is take the screw eye and screw it into your unbaked clay. And I'm literally just making the threads, the screw threads, and keep putting that in until it's all the way in there. Okay. And then that metal piece can go in the oven. And when it comes out, you will need to tack that in with some glue. And so I keep mentioning glue. Let's talk about what that glue is. This is what I recommend for gluing polymer clay, for gluing metal to clay, for gluing glass to clay, whatever you're gluing to the clay. This Loctite super glue is awesome. It squeezes out. You squeeze them like this very easily, and it is super strong. So once I bake this, I would want to, this will pop out and then put a tiny little dot of glue and then put that back in there. So that is a second method of getting a loop down here in order to connect these later. All right. Snowman is just about ready to go into the oven. All right, so at this point, we're ready to bake. We have our snowman, we have our cap, we have our candy canes. And so this goes into the preheated oven at 250, 20 minutes. If you have some really thick pieces in there, you might want to let it go 25 minutes. You aren't going to really burn it. Don't be so worried about burning it. At a low oven like that, it's going to take quite a lot of forgetting that it's in the oven in order to burn it. So it's always better to thoroughly cook your polymer clay pieces. If you do not cook them enough, they won't be flexible. So here's an example. This is flexible. This is baked clay. This is what it should be like when it comes out of the oven. After it cools, it will be flexible like this. If your clay, if you go like this and it breaks, it's brittle, that means that it hasn't been baked long enough. So it hasn't like fully gone through that polymerization process that it needs to go through. All right, so let's pretend we've baked. We have pieces out of the oven. Here they are. So these two pieces need to be connected here. We're going to connect them with a jump ring. And then they need to be able to go through our ear. So we need something that looks like this, which is like a little earring, a flat pad earring stud. And to make both of those work, I need to drill through here to create a hole. So that is where a little hand drill like this comes in super handy. Pun intended. So this part goes into your palm. This part spins around. It has interchangeable nibs on there so that you can kind of vary the millimeter size of what you're cutting. And here we go. So you place the tip where you want it to go and then twist with your fingers until that goes all the way through. It really makes pretty quick work of it. You can see it's already through that. I'm going to reverse to get out of there. And there we go. Same thing over here. Want this to go here. If you have an electric drill, like one of those mini Dremel drills, that would be great too. But you don't need to have the fancy tools. A simple little hand drill like this will work fine. Now you will get little shavings everywhere. Let's scooch those to the side. Okay. So first I'm going to connect them using a jump ring. You need quite a large jump ring to get through this because these are very thick. And because they're very thick, I had to cook them a little bit extra so that they wouldn't be brittle. But here's a jump ring. I have just a plain little needle nose plier over here, and I want to open the jump ring by finding where it breaks. There's a break in every jump ring, and I twist one toward me and one away from me, and that's how I open it. And then I can just feed that through one piece. And before I close it, I feed the other piece through, just making sure that the right sides are going to be facing out. So at this point, I may need a second pair of pliers to get in there and grab that other end. And in the opposite motion that we open the jump ring, we close it. And so that's how we connect those two pieces together. So now we need to be able to put this through our ear. We could use something like this. You can also use something like this if you want this to be more dangly. This could absolutely be that. You would just need another hole at the top, and you would need obviously another jump ring, another hole and another jump ring. But if you want more of the stud effect, we are just going to glue this onto the back. So getting my Loctite glue, putting a little Oh, is this one done? This one is done. Okay, it's opening of new glue day. Here's what my new package looks like. Looks like the packaging changed just a little bit, but I did get this at Michael's. Open this up. Here we go. These work. Is there, I've never opened a new one before. Hold on. Hold on. Now, you should probably read the instructions. Yeah, there's like a process of opening this. Okay. Still not. All right. To be continued. As soon as I have a working glue. There's not one more, just one drop is all I need. Oh, no. Okay. So if you have a glue that is working, this one will work. There's a procedure for opening it the very first time. So it's just a drop of glue and you glue that right on there. And then you have something like this. A lot of times those flat pads come with the earring backs. And there's our finished earring. Super cute. All right, back to candy cane. So the candy cane we do want to use, this is like a French ear wire. Let me get my drill. And my drill just flew away. It was here a second ago. And wow, thank you for staying with me this whole class, guys. Appreciate that. And I'm just falling apart. I seem to have misplaced my drill, but I've already shown you how that will work. This one actually does already have a hole through it. So let's just skip that part and let me show you how to finish it. We need a jump ring. This jump ring is already open right here. Let's feed that through. And before you close the jump ring, you can put your ear wire on. And with a second set of pliers, close that up. And there you go. And again, there are multiple ways of adding an ear wire to a piece like this. You could, if you're familiar with wire work, you can just use some craft wire to create a wrapped loop at the top of there. For you that are very familiar with jewelry making, you'll understand what I mean by a wrapped loop. But this is just a very simple way, and it dangles very nicely. It looks beautiful on the ear. All right, so we are wrapping it up here. I always like to wrap it up with a little bit of a show and tell. I would like to show you some past projects that we've done on our classes. Oh, I didn't connect this. I didn't connect this guy. We can do that really quickly. It's just opening and closing of jump rings again. So this jump ring is actually already open. Connect these things together. So there's this top half and his bottom half. And there you go. He's all connected together. And again, you can decide whether you want to use the flat pad to attach onto the back, or if you want to use a traditional ear wire like this. Okay. So If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the chat. I'm just going to run through some cool projects just to give you more inspiration of how to work with polymer clay, the types of things that you can make with it. This is where we took a jewelry bezel. This metal thing is a bezel, and we added some polymer clay to it. This is in a past class. These are all past classes are available on Michael's YouTube. We also added some texture. And I don't think I have enough time to show you exactly how that works, but there are these texture sheets, and you roll that into clay before baking it, and then you can apply all these gorgeous textures and patterns, and super cute. And so that's how we got this scroll look. And we bake it in the oven with that metal piece. Some earrings, these are sort of featuring all of the different patterned clays that are available. Checkers. This is supposed to look like semi-precious stone, like malachite. We've got some ombre pieces here. Hoop earrings. Super fun to make hoop earrings. This one is, instead of a faux braided technique like we did today, this is actually braided. You can see it's flexible. But these are really cute. Here's a twisted hoop. That same technique that we did of the little cap, you can turn that. This one broke, but this is a little necklace pendant that's a cap. This broke because it is so thick. It just needed to be cooked in the oven a few more minutes. What else? Here's another example of the use of those texture sheets. A very simple earring like this. It's just 2 pieces, but the texture really jazzes it up. Here's another example of clay being baked into a bezel. Here's an example of clay being made into a ring. So this ring was made with a mold. More to come on that in future classes. Here's another example of adding texture. This we added some daisies, more patterned earrings. Oh, I have so much fun stuff in here. Here's one of the patterns that I love, this leopard print. Like, for you to make a clay slab that has this leopard print in it, it's very labor intense. And you can see when I turn it to the side, that pattern is all the way through it. It's not just on the top. So it's the same with making this yourself. Sure, you can go out and buy black clay and white clay, but to make it into this checkerboard pattern is, it's pretty intensive. So we've already done that for you. Here's another twisted hoop example. So I hope that I've given you some inspiration and taken all you beginners from a complete beginner to now you kind of know your way around some polymer clay. So thank you for sticking with me through our technical difficulties, my losing of tools. I really appreciate it. We do these a few times a month. Check us out on michaels.com, and we hope to see you here next time. Thank you so much, guys.